You're listening to Community Connection here on KGMI. I'm Crystal King, and my guest today is Ziad Youssef with MyTrafficMan.net. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Crystal. I brought Todd Anderson with me today. We wanted to talk a little bit about getting relicensed for those people who may have resolved to get their license back in the new year.
And it's not a simple thing, is it?
Well, you know what? It's more tedious than a lot of people would like to do, but it's not as hard. And I think that's one of the messages we want to get across today, that it's not impossible. A lot of people come in thinking that it's just too difficult. But before we jump into it, I brought Todd with me because he also wants to talk about a few things that people might be dealing with in the new year based on some of the laws that changed just toward the end of last year.
Great. And again, we are talking to Todd Anderson also. He is a chief associate with MyTrafficMan.net.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
And Happy New Year to you. So
Thank you.
a lot of people thinking they want to get back their driver's license. Some people think it's too tough, and then they don't, but they still drive, and then they get into more problems.
Before we came in today, I spoke with Annie, who's our DOL expert in our office, who, if you call her office, you're undoubtedly going to be speaking with her because she's a brain at this. She says it's not as bad as people think. At least once a week, someone comes in and says, holy cow, I could have my license back this easily, because it's just a process. You have goals you have to hit, and if you do them, you can get your license back. And usually it's not as bad as people actually believe.
What do you think stops them? Do you think it's just this is too overwhelming?
They're not used to the system. It's overwhelming. They're not used to being in that kind of thing where you're having to go from court to court and figure out where to pay this and how to pay that and what court paperwork do I need. And so that's part of the process that we go through is we give you a roadmap, tell you how to get through the process, give you the forms, put it together in a nice packet, and make it that easy for you.
Yeah, and a lot of people, probably just file it away and that's too hard box and then ignore it. But it doesn't go away when they ignore it. And like you said, the problems just escalate from there. And I'm hoping people who have decided they're going to resolve to get their license back will pay attention today, and we'll walk them through just some of the steps on a few different suspensions that they may be going through. But Todd had found a couple of interesting things that we want to note because there's a couple of new ways to be suspended.
Well, there's a couple things, and this is with the bill that was just signed, 5912, and part of it went into effect in September, part of it went into effect January 1st, yesterday. Part of it is if you violate your probation now, that under the new rules, you can actually be suspended for 30 days if you have a probation violation. If you're already suspended, it adds on 30 days. So you can actually have more time for probation violations now. The other big one is that if you fail to appear to a court appearance or if you fail to respond to a traffic ticket, you can get your license suspended that way now. So a lot of people don't realize that it's something that simple can get you suspended, and they don't find out until the officer's behind them saying, hey, you have a warrant for your arrest because your license is suspended.
So you're never contacted and say it has been revoked? So you would have no idea?
Sometimes you get a license, Department of Licensing will send you a letter, say, hey, you are being suspended as of this date, but a lot of people don't update their addresses. It goes to the wrong place. They never get it, and they find out when the officer's behind them with the lights on.
Yeah, and the Department of Licensing has to send you a notice, but they only have to send you a notice to the last known address. So if you've been moving around, hopping from apartment to apartment, and not updating the Department of Licensing with your most current mailing address, you can't come into court and say, I never got the notice because they sent it to your last known address. So you have to update the court. And that's usually one of the first things we do when people come in is, did you update Department of Licensing and the court with your new address so they can send you the proper notices? And, people have been dealing with suspended licenses for years for not paying traffic tickets. The new issue here with the warrant is if you miss a criminal court date and they issue a warrant for you, that's another basis to suspend your license. But in fact, the most common way people lose their license is because they get a traffic ticket, they can't afford to pay it, they're overwhelmed in their life when they got the ticket, so it goes to collections, they fail to respond, and their license gets suspended, and now in order to get reinstated, they have to pay off that fine. That's easy. But if you got 5 or 6 of them or 3 or 4 of them, because that's just how your luck is going in that period of time, then you get overwhelmed and you're thinking, they're all in collections, how can I ever afford to pay them? And that's probably the most common person we see coming into the office.
Exactly, and they've realized that I have all this in collections, and they maybe they do make the phone call and find out that their $150 traffic ticket is now $375 because of interest and everything else. And so one of the things that we do is we do assess all of their tickets, see what is actually holding up their license, and find out if there are tickets we can pull back out of collections and save them hundreds or possibly thousands of dollars on interest and things like that. That's just one of the ways ways that we make it a little bit easier for them is by finding out, hey, you can pull this back out, you can save money on this, and we can make it so it's a much easier solution for you.
And that's what I love about our MyTrafficMan care team. They're not afraid of the tedious process. You call Annie up and you talk to her about having a suspended license. She's just going to get your basic information, and she's going to run through and find a roadmap for you from court to court where we have to go to get your tickets paid off, and if you can get your tickets pulled out of collections. Even more important is that when you call a collection agency to talk about paying them off, they don't always tell you which tickets are holding up your license and which tickets you aren't. Mm-hmm. So it's better for us to do the research on our end and tell you exactly which tickets are holding up your license. And that way you can just choose to focus on getting those paid off or getting those on a payment plan so that you can reinstate with the Department of Licensing. Because the Department of Licensing says as long as they get notice from the collection agency that you're in a compliant payment plan on the tickets that you have in collections and that are holding up your license, then they'll clear your license up so you can pay a reinstatement fee.
So you can get your license back while still paying them off.
Yeah, we had a client recently had about $8,000 in collections.
Yeah.
It was only about $1,200 that was holding up his license. So it was fantastic, great news to him. And once he heard it, he realized that it's not as hard. So we're encouraging people to stay resolved to get their license back. The other type of the license suspension that people don't think about is these young drivers who aren't necessarily driving when they pick up an offense that costs them their license. Like they get an MIP. You're at a party over the weekend, you pick up an MIP. If you're a juvenile, if you're under 18, and you either get a diversion on an MIP or you plead guilty to an MIP, you're going to lose your license for 1 year. And a lot of them don't realize that's a consequence of their MIP. So what the law provides for and what we like to do is after 90 days of that 1 year suspension, they're eligible to petition the court for an early reinstatement of it. So, we have drivers that have been on the suspension for months thinking their whole life's not going to be the same for a whole year. And they come in, we tell them, well, you've been on your suspension for 90 days. Let's get into the court and show them that you've been on your best behavior and it's justified for you to have your early reinstatement. We can get them back on to driving.
And as a juvenile, there's a lot of different ways that you can be suspended and get suspensions for something that, if you're over 18 or over 21, it would not cause you any kind of suspension. So a lot of times it is surprising for them, and they don't realize the effect that a choice they're making today that has nothing to do with driving is going to affect them possibly for a long term. So it is important to kind of know what you're looking at as far as being a minor and MIPs or any kind of possession of marijuana.
Possession of marijuana is another one that kids don't think about, especially the way it's going these days, is that if you're on a diversion for possession of marijuana or you're convicted of it and you're a juvenile, it's a 1 year suspension as well. But you can petition after the 90 days for the early reinstatement.
That might make people think twice.
Yeah, and there's plenty of other ones that I want to encourage people to give us a call so we can discuss with them just how not complicated or not intimidating it is to get your license back.
Again, we are talking to Ziad Youssef with MyTrafficMan.net and Todd Anderson, also a chief associate at MyTrafficMan.net. How do people get a hold of you?
Best ways to call us directly at the office, 360-734-0908, or check us out online at www.MyTrafficMan.net.
Great. Thank you both for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Crystal.
And
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. And for all your resolutions, right?
Yes,
That's right.
Stay with us. We've got lots more coming up.